formal name of Explora is the Explora Science Center and Children's Museum. 30-some years ago, the idea for science-based children's museum and the science center merged. So we became this museum representing or actually servicing the whole spectrum of population, meaning all ages. And then we, in the heart of Albuquerque Old Town, you see the picture here. Basically, across from Dinosaur Museum, Natural History Museum is right here. And art museums across sort of a really sort of catty corner across from the Kiwish Park. There's a park there. So we cater to all ages, children, adults, older than adults, everyone. We serve about more than 380,000 people a year. And of that, over 110,000 students we reach through various programming activities, outreach, coming to Explora on field trip and whatnot. We also provide 20,000 free family memberships every year. Part of that is really coming from our partnership with our APS, Albuquerque Public School Title I program. So we host in the semester almost every week, once or twice, one or two evenings a week during the semester. We invite Title I schools to Explora and have family science night. We feed them, we have activities for them. They spend time at the museum in the evening. We also reach 6,000 students through summer camps and spring camps. Yes.
What's Title I schools?
Title I schools are low-income families. Oh, yeah. I think every public school has that program or similar one. Title I is a terminology for low-income families. Yeah, yeah. And so 6,000 students, actually more than that, during summer and spring camp activities. We also, again, I mentioned 15,000 people, a little more than 15,000 people come to Family Science Night through Title I school program. And we also reach a little more than 2,200 teachers through teacher professional development workshops. Now, 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, 2023 in February, we opened this extension to our museum called X Studio. Now, so this is Explora right here. This I should use a laser pointer. That's Explora. This part is extension. 8,000 square foot extension to Explora called X Studio, which was designed intended for serving teenagers. Teenagers are focus, and it's a sort of one-stop shop that some of us want to call it for teen engagement, focusing on career pathways. Since opening in February 2023, we have served about 22,000 teens through various programming activities, visitorship, or through different activities. 6,400 students attending design and fabrication workshops in makerspace. 2,600 attended digital media and music production programs. 1,200 attended SEL program, SEL meaning social emotional learning programming, which has been increasingly a focus. And we also have Career Pathways Initiative internship program, which focuses on high school students. Each semester, we have about 25 to 35, upward of 40 students each semester. It's a 2-year internship program. Those students learn about museum operations, facilitation skills, science communication skills. Some of them actually work with different departments. Some of them also go through us to engage in externship programs with partner organizations like UNM, CNM. And skipped over, but studio. So the physical building has these facilities. We have exhibits gallery, makerspace, tech lab, mentor corners, multi-purpose classrooms, and teen lounge for teenagers to hang out. So the first exhibition in X Studio is called STEM in the Bouquet. That's currently there, the exhibits gallery. That's the picture of the exhibits gallery. The whole space is about 1,600 square feet. There are 14 brand new exhibits that we developed with our community partners. 9 of them, physically in this space, 8 of them. One other one I'll talk about is in the main building. But 9 of those exhibits as part of STEM in the Bouquet. We also call that set Working Water, because we developed those exhibits with Albuquerque Bernalillo County Water Utility Authority. They funded us. They also co-developed with us. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit. Really focusing on the water resource management. And that is also working together with the other 7 exhibits of their subject areas, laser, for example, and also solar. So how this STEM in the Bouquet developed? Explora has gained this expertise over the past decade or so, community listening, and we are in the children's museum field, pretty well known as one of the experts in the field to do community listening. So what that means is really pretty simple. We go to the community we serve, we hold listening sessions about different projects, or different programming that we do, and we get their feedback. And we basically go to the community to find out what we really need to do for the community. So we went through more than a couple dozens of listening sessions. This actually started about 10 years ago. And what the community told us was, we need a place in programming for teenagers. Historically speaking, museum world has tended to serve a little bit underserved teenagers. We focus a lot on little ones, really little ones, and really grown-ups. So teen programming has been gaining really momentum in the museum field now. And I would really like to say we're on the sort of leading edge in this manner. So ideas came through a lot of listening sessions, and we decided to involve teenagers also through the development of the exhibition. So we formed an advisory group by teenagers. We talked to different school groups. And then basically, this is sort of how it came to creating STEM in the Bouquet exhibition. We involved STEM employers, teenagers, community partners, and educators. So focusing on now, water exhibits that I mentioned. As I mentioned, we partnered with water utility, Bernalillo County Water Utility. So we launched the project with them, and for STEM in the Bouquet, sort of a larger picture project in 2019, before COVID started. And basically, it went through the whole COVID period to develop. What we do is that, this is, somewhat typical, I think, in the museum world, when museums develop exhibitions, we do design charrettes to sort of a free-flowing design, sort of an idea session. We invited Water Authority to sort of create different sort of ideas about water resource management. So this is, we use sort of a everyday materials to sort of create what these ideas might look like. We went through a number of sessions, and through COVID, we had numerous sessions over Zoom with the Water Authority subject matter experts to really crystallize our ideas for exhibits. And then actually, let's go back. And we came up these themes. So we came up together 7 focus areas in water resource management. And that's what we used to build our exhibits. Okay, so I'm going to talk about all those 9 exhibits now. This exhibit we call a Water 2120 game. It's based on Water Utility Authority's Water 2120 water plan, 100-year water plan, water management plan. And we worked with the, anyone familiar with the Electric Playhouse? It's Albuquerque-based game company. They also have interactive restaurants with a multimedia room. So we worked with them to create this simulation game. It's sort of a little bit of like a zombie apocalypse scenario a little bit, but it starts with 100 years from now, so 2120. But the premise is, okay, water management needs some help. And so the game, you can travel back to current days, and there are different scenarios about water management. You can play with the water resources where you pull water from, and then see how you can create a better water future. So that's funny exhibits. Next one is it's pretty much a sort of replica simulation of the how we get with drinking water in Bernalillo County in Albuquerque. So this is Rio Chama drinking water pathways. So this is a whole table set up, and we have different waters of Colorado River, Abiquiu Lake. Those things are connected. And what happens in this dial right here, it randomly gives you a scenario. So Albuquerque, Bernalillo County needs how many millions of gallons of water on this particular day. You play with the amount of water you pull from those rivers and reservoirs. And also this second dial actually is lets you pull a certain amount of water from aquifer. So you feed that information, you press the button, and water starts moving from this tank to this tank to this tank. Aquifer water comes from this bottom feed, and then see if you meet the demand. And in the end, these little houses light up. In this case, it was perfect. But if you don't supply enough water, some of those houses light up in red. So it's a very simple exhibit, but sort of, intention was to give you an idea about what water resource managers go through every day. Next one. This we call water bar. So it's really a bar setup, and we actually use this as a this actually the whole exhibits gallery is a multi-purpose space. So we actually can remove these exhibits tabletop and turn this into literally a water bar for different events. This water bar has 4 exhibits, and it's really focused on the treatment, filtration, biodegradation. So one is a very simple microscope that lets you see different microorganisms in water, wastewater. Another one is about flocculation. Another one is a filtration. It lets you play with different sizable particles and how it gets filtered through different stages. And this one is really funny. Do you remember Pac-Man game? So it's a riff of Pac-Man game. It's a little oxygen and enzyme eats little poop icons. So it's like a water warrior type of scenario, but it's really fun, really retro feeling to it. Next one is really focused on conservation. Again, it's also very simple. So there's a water tank here that feeds the exhibits. And these are the different sort of household scenarios. One will be dishwasher, shower, lawn watering. And there's a dial here to give you a hint. So you can play with this needle to change the amount of water that goes into this tank on the bottom. And basically simply to show you, if you choose to do efficient method to meet your household water needs, what the difference is. Again, simple visual reference on what you can do to conserve water. Next one. This is really nice. It's one of my favorites. Again, this is pretty simple, but Very, I think, effective. This is a model of aquifer. And we have set up dyes on top. So feeding to different levels of the aquifer, the dye tells you how contamination can affect our aquifer water source. So this is really to show you what we do to the environment and water source can impact our really precious water source in different way. And the last one is called refugium. This is actually in the main part of the building. It's really to represent what water resource management also does to conservation of wildlife. In this case, we have minnow, not silver minnow because they are endangered. We can't get them, but we have I think fat belly minnow or something, some kind of minnow in here, just to show you how refugium works, sort of intentional creation of water resource in an environment for wildlife. So these are the 9 exhibits themed around water resource management. What we are doing is we are working with different partners to really get teenagers into the space and encourage them to interact with those exhibits, among other things, to really promote different water resource management career pathways. I want to also touch on a sort of few examples of the partnership around water resource management. So we've been partnering with the Sandia National Labs Water Power, and we have developed different activities, and we've been doing programming activities at these locations. Just to give you an example, Isla de Pueblo, we also work with Zuni Youth Enrichment Program in Zuni Pueblo, summer programs. We also go out to libraries like Placida Public Libraries. And we also use the kits we develop with the Sandia Water Power to do professional development. And these QR codes take you to a couple of articles that Sandia National Labs wrote about programming activities. We've been partnering with the UNM Center for Water and the Environment for the past 5 years or so. They've been part of camp programs more primarily. We have summer camp called, we actually started with this program called the Planting Seeds of STEM. And the UNM CWE has been part of the facilitating camp programs about water resource management and water resources. So that's those are some examples. And earlier in the keynote presentation this morning, the focus really has been on career pathways for youth. And what we have been doing is we are partnering with the UNM different departments, not necessarily just about water resource management, but other different STEM subject areas to create sort of pathway to internship opportunities. So that's something we like to really continue doing and more. So if any of you have some ideas about internship or sort of activities, please talk to us. We like to develop some ideas around giving teenagers some exposure to different career pathways and higher education opportunity or trades opportunities as well. So that was sort of in a nutshell what we do around water resource management. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Do you guys have any mobile exhibits that you can take out? Excuse me, do you have any mobile exhibits that do educate the water resources?
Water resource, no. We have other activity exhibits that can move around, but we have dozens of kits that we use for outreach activities. And those actually, a lot of them are actually water resource management or acequia water management type of activities, also filtration, for example, activity kit. So we take those kits to different communities. And as I mentioned earlier, we reach more than 100,000 students every year. We have a very robust education program at WRRI, much bigger museums. We reach almost all the school districts in New Mexico plus Southern Colorado. So we take those kids out to those communities and do different subject areas and water resource management. I think, so acequia and also filtration activities can be considered water resource management activity exhibits. They're more small, sort of a hands-on type of activity kits. But it would be nice to develop some really much more robust, bigger water resource management exhibits that can travel around. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sarah, and I am a high school science teacher in Alamogordo. But I am also a PhD in water science and management from NMSU, and that's kind of how I got myself involved in this project that I'm about to tell you about that we're doing in Alamogordo. So just to kind of give you a little bit of information before I kind of jump into this, I have been teaching in Alamogordo Public Schools. This is year 6. I was just doing it to kind of pay the bills as I finished up my PhD. And so I started off at the middle school level as a STEM teacher, doing things like first robotics in my classroom. And then I moved up to the high school where I am teaching biology and AP environmental science for those students. When I started at the high school, I told the principal that I really wanted to do this AP environmental science because it really was an opportunity to bring in my water background to the students of our schools. And she likes to run with my crazy ideas that I come up with sometimes. And one day in the middle of summer, I was at a water conference similar to this one, except in Arizona. And I texted her and I said, hey, I have this idea. And she was like, all right, let's go. And I said, I want to take my students to Oliver Lee State Park once a month, which means they're going to be out of school once a month. What do you think? And she was like, I think this could work. And at that point in time, we still had some COVID funds. We are a Title I school. And so some of those Title I funds can participate or can fund these types of field trips. And so she said, I think we can figure out a way to fund this idea that you have, kind of run with this, meet up in August. We'll have these conversations a little bit in more depth. And so I came back from the conference and I actually talked to her in July instead of August. And I said, okay, so here it is. What I want to do is I want to take my 11th and 12th grade AP students out to Oliver Lee State Park once a month. I've already talked with Oliver Lee State Park. I kind of got some ideas from them. At that point in time, they were only testing their water for water quality once a year in the summertime. And so by working with Oliver Lee State Park, we would be able to give them monthly data instead of just their once a year data. And we kind of talked about some ideas of ways that we could build on that data in the future as well. The reason that this was important to me is because New Mexico has one high school science standard, and it is the Earth, Space, and Science 3-4, not 1-4. And in that standard, it talks about water conservation being an issue in New Mexico, but it also talks about other ecological issues that New Mexico has. And so one of the big problems with the standard is it occurs kind of late in the school year, right before teachers are preparing our students for testing. And so it barely ever gets touched. It gets touched very, very briefly, and then they move right along in their getting things prepared for testing. And so a teacher can meet the standard by hitting any one of those ecological systems that are mentioned in this standard. And so it doesn't necessarily have to involve water. It could be some of the nuclear issues that may occur, some of the mining issues that may occur, and a handful of others as well. Wildfires, I believe, is one of the ecological system problems that are addressed in that standard as well. And so water is not touched very much in our public schools right now. And so I said, hey, I think that we need to touch this a little bit more for our students. And Oliver Lee State Park is close enough to us and it has year-round water. And so why not? We'll take them out there. And so I did do some collaboration with various people. My biggest collaborator is with the Holloman K-12 Air and Space STEM outreach coordinator, and her title changes every year. Right now, that's her current title. It'll change. But Mrs. Kangas is as a STEM outreach coordinator, she goes into classrooms all the time, and as being part of the Air Force, there's STEM funding there. She gets a big chunk of money every year, and she can purchase things for her lendable library. Most of her lendable library has stuff to do with robotics and other engineering things. And I said, hey, I've got this crazy idea. And she was like, oh, I actually love this idea for my lendable library. Teachers come to me for Earth Day activities all the time, and I don't have anything. I have robots. And so we came up with this plan to work together, and she purchased some supplies. And I taught her how to use those supplies. And now she's taking that into other schools and expanding our reach from what I'm about to tell you into our whole Tularosa Basin. I worked with at MSU, Dr. Manoj Shukla. He was my advisor through my PhD, and so he's helped kind of develop this project as well. Of course, we worked with all of WRRI State Park staff, and then also with multiple teachers, as well as the learning and technology specialist at Alamogordo Public Schools for this project. And so what we did is I started with my 24 AP Environmental Science students. And we took them out to all of WRRI State Park once a month, starting in August. And before we started, I asked my students, hey, have you ever been to all of WRRI State Park? It's literally 12 miles from our high school right now, but most of my students had never been there. A few of them had, but for the most part, they might go up to Cloudcroft once in a while. They'll go over to Las Cruces once in a while, maybe down to El Paso. But they had not been to all of WRRI State Park. They didn't know that there was this water source that existed close by. So I took them. We conducted water quality testing using Lamont little kits. They looked for the nitrates and phosphates and pH of the water. We did turbidity of the water. We had electric conductivity probes that we looked for electric conductivity of our waters. We also collected some weather data, basically like taking air temperature, describing the conditions that we were seeing, and then going back to the classroom and pulling up weather data that had been collected that is available online. We also collected some air quality data using a Lab Pro air sensor. And so we were able to take that out with us, connects to an app. And when we could sometimes get service down there, it wasn't very reliable, but we were able to at least get initial data before the app kind of shut down on us. But basically, big picture, we got the kids outside. And that is a big deal in trying to keep our kids engaged. And you'll notice that my pictures are all of the kids because that's what's most important in trying to encourage youth engagement, in my opinion. And of all these kids.
Oh.
I was gonna say there's one super important kid on here, but
This one.
okay, that one. And then we're gonna go back up into.
Okay.
Use actually PowerPoint. We use Google Slides. But this project is super, super special to me because that one right there looks a lot like my husband. He doesn't really look like me at all, but I delivered that one. So it was really important to me that I encourage these kids because I see them as the future, because one of them is my future. I had an awesome opportunity through the WRRI student grant to bring the students up to the 68th annual water conference last year in Albuquerque, which was a really fun time. My students presented posters of the things that they were learning on their field trips and kind of getting that initial water quality stuff out. But they also had an opportunity to talk to water resource managers here in our state. They had an opportunity to participate in asking questions and talking to people at their posters, and it was just a really cool opportunity for them. And it really got them excited to see what is going on in New Mexico and where they might be able to fit in the future. And so so I started with my 24 AP students. And my 24 students then were able to teach 40 first graders about water quality in the spring. So we had 2 elementary teachers meet us out at WRRI State Park. We developed little notebooks for the kids to write down their research that they were learning about, and it was at a first grade level by working with those teachers as well. And so we were able to have our high school students really work with these littles and get them excited about water as well. We also went with the 16 AP biology students out to WRRI State Park one day, and they again were showing those students what we were talking about in our classroom. And then over the summer, a few of my students met up during our STEM camp that our public schools put on. And again, we, instead of taking them out to WRRI State Park, because me and my big idea, she couldn't figure out how to make that happen. It's in the works for this coming summer though. This time we brought the water to them, and then my students were able to teach these kids how to use the water quality testing kits and have all these water quality, water conservation conversations with the 58 STEM camp students that aged between 6th grade and 11th grade. When I started at the beginning of the school year of last year, I had one student who was like, I want to go into environmental science. I don't know how, I don't know where. I want to go into environmental science. Great. By the end of that class, that one student plus 4 others all still want to go into environmental science in some way, shape, or form. My original one plus a second one are both enrolled at NMSU in the plant environmental science programs right now. One of those kiddos that has changed the career path is hoping to be able to pursue a career in computer science and cybersecurity and somehow rope that all into environmental science. One of my students has always wanted to be a lawyer and is now looking at water law specifically. And then one of my students like completely flipped all of her life, and she is now all about environmental science, specifically water. She is a senior this year, and she started the Green Club at our high school so that students who weren't part of the class could also get some environmental science in them as well. So my 24 students talked to their friends, told them about some of the things that we were doing, and the class size grew this year so that I now have 43 students in my classes. They had to add another section so that we could still have enough seats for all of the students who wanted. We also have 24 members of our Green Club. 16 of those members are not involved with the AP Environmental Science class either last year or this year. And so we're really growing this program in our school right now. I'm really just getting people excited about it. We are continuing our monthly visits out to WRRI State Park. One of the cool things that we saw last year is that towards late spring, there was a small wildfire about 3 acres right above where we collected our water. And so while the water quality didn't change much throughout the year, they were able to see the effects of a wildfire 2 days after the fire, after they opened the park back up, and then check it again for the next 2 months and saw some changes that occurred there. So that was a pretty cool thing for them to be able to see. We're still getting kids outside, right? Like that's the main goal, is we're getting kids outside, we're getting them excited. They are learning not only about the water quality that's out there, but they're also starting to learn a little bit more about the plants and animals that are out there. So that's one of the things that I've been trying to do a little bit more of, is really getting them involved with not just the water, but the entire riparian area, learning about those plants, learning about the different animals that are out there as well, including the rattlesnakes. That definitely scared their teacher a little bit. I was like, time to go. There were 5. So we left. But it was, yes, we must have like found a little nest and it was time to go. I don't know if there were more. We just decided that that was enough. It was time to go. Because I had one lovely junior that was like, can I take him home? Can I touch him? I'm like, no, we all have to go. And his mom apologizes to me frequently. But it's just been a lot of fun to get them out there, get them involved in the outdoors, because they don't go outside very often anymore. And so we go back to class, we talk about water conservation, we talk about their lives and we talk about how it's important for them to be able to be a part of this world and where they're going because they're juniors and seniors, and in a moment they're going to be in college, and then a moment after that they're going to be grown-ups trying to pay bills. And so I want them to understand where they fit and encourage them. And so when I thought about this presentation, of course I want to show you the pictures of the kids because I'm proud of them, and that's what we're all here for. But I think that this slide is actually what's most important because this is the things that other people can do. And so, I mean, the first, I think, big thing that people can do is get into those schools. Yes, there's hoops to jump through. Yes, you have to have a background check in most of the schools to be approved to go in. But it's important that those kids know who you are. And so if you just go once, they don't really know you. You're just some person who like brought some water. But if you go multiple times and they get to know you, they get to see that this is something that we're passionate about and that they have an opportunity to be passionate about it as well. I think more importantly, it's to bring the kids to you. Like at Explora, they're getting out of the classroom. They're learning more things outside of the classroom, and any teacher will tell you the students are just more engaged when they're outside of the classroom. The classroom represents that boring math that they don't want to do, that boring book that they don't want to read, that boring paper that I have to write now. But if you get them outside of the classroom, that's when they're going to start remembering the things that you're actually talking about so that they can go back and do that boring math and write that boring paper and read that boring article. And then I think I have this big idea of where I see New Mexico and how New Mexico could really impact our youth. And I think New Mexico needs a program much like our Air Force bases have with their STEM outreach, where you have somebody or multiple somebodies and that's their job. They develop this curriculum and then they go to the schools. My friend who is the Hellman STEM outreach person, she is in schools every day of the week, most of the time. When she's not developing activities for these kids, she's going in and she's doing activities with them. And I think that New Mexico really needs to start thinking about those types of things. Actually, I mean, we have so much to do in our normal jobs and getting all the things done, and funding is always a problem. And New Mexico is big and it's really spread out. But I think if you had like a person in the north and a person in the south that could go multiple directions, getting to these different schools, starting to work with the kids, getting them excited so that they go out and they go do these things on their own. They encourage their parents to go to Explora. They encourage their parents to go to whatever equivalent is down in Las Cruces. They encourage their parents to go to Oliver Lee State Park, because that's what I've heard from some of my parents is, oh, my kid made me, like they took me out here so they could show me where they collected the stuff. I think that's how we start to get more people, not just our youth, but more people involved. I'm working with 11th and 12th graders. So they're almost grown-ups. And a lot of times people go into elementary schools because they're cute and they're cute and they're exciting. I don't really like elementary schools. I'm not an elementary teacher. But we can't forget about our middle school kids. They are the scary weirdos that nobody really wants to hang out with. But they're the ones that we really need to be grabbing and getting a hold of now, because by the time they're in 11th or 12th grade, they've already kind of figured out what they want to do. We're not going to change much of their ideas. But if we could grab them in 6th and 7th grade, maybe then we're going to be starting to talk about how those kids are going to represent our future in the state of New Mexico. And so I really think that having somebody who that's their job, they go to these schools, they bring the kids outside somewhere. Water festival used to be a thing in Alamogordo, but COVID happened and we haven't had one since. I think we need to bring it back. The Brackish Groundwater Research Facility used to do 3rd graders, where they brought all the 3rd graders in the Tularosa Basin to their facility. Since COVID, they haven't done that. They're trying to bring it back this year. But getting these kids back into water and getting them excited about water again, I think is where we need to be. And I think that needs to be the job of people until we can start kind of spreading it out a little bit more. And finally, every time I go to Oliver Lee State Park, I take a picture as we walk down into the valley. And so here's a couple of my pictures. How's it going? Any questions? Yes.
Yes, so.
Thank you for the presentation.
I think we should talk
Yeah,
about developing program, and I think we have an opportunity here. Middle school, definitely. So a lot of science learning, informal learning centers like Explora have been focusing on middle school kids increasingly because, as Sarah pointed out, they are the ones to grab right now. They are the ones to plant seeds of STEAM learning in. And as you mentioned, I think we can really start thinking about developing some network of informal education about water resource management. For example, and as I mentioned in my presentation, we are partnering with Water Utility Authority in Bernalillo County, and we get support from them for several more years financially, but also we want to also reinvigorate our partnership. So maybe we can work with you and your water authority in Alamogordo area. Maybe we can create a network of outreach and explore that. We are very good at outreach, as you may know. So we can maybe think about that idea.
that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. So my name is Alex. You want to take a look at this photo? What do you think I do besides my full-time job with NMAA? Guess it is. It's probably pretty obvious. And
You play with sheep.
yep,
Sure.
yep, exactly. I have sheep. I'm a farmer. I'm a rancher. So I do that up near just north of Taos in San Cristobal. Yeah, a lot to say with that, but I won't go into all of it. My background and education overall, I guess for my own personal background, I am Griota. I'm not from New Mexico. I didn't grow up here, but I have family from here. So part of me being here is about trying to engage with these ancestral practices, right? Acequias are a major part of that. Farming and shepherding, all of these things are aspects of that, not for everybody, but for some. So I'm doing that in my spare time, and then I'm going into schools, and I'm not just schools, but running all these different youth programs that are helping to support acequias and that culture and tradition here in New Mexico. So I first started out doing some teaching. I was at a pathway where I was going to decide to become a public school teacher or not, and I decided not to. I decided to go in youth work background and was in more like crisis support services for youth. So I was working in homeless shelters for youth. I was working at youth clubs, and all with a variety of different emphasis and interesting expertise. And that's all stuff we're really familiar with, right? We all know about the foster care system. We all know about therapy. We all know about rehab. We all know about all these different things in our communities that are helping with crisis that we're experiencing and youth are experiencing. But what about that preventative work? What about that dignity and sense of pride and culture? So that's something that I found at NMAA. I did one of these programs that I'll talk about later. And from then on, kind of just stuck around. So as you can see here, our mission statement is to protect water and our acequias, to grow healthy food for our families and communities, and to honor our cultural heritage. NMAA is way more than just what I'm going to talk about today. We do policy work, we do governance support for acequias, we do tons and tons of different things, technical support, legal support, but I'm the one that gets to do the fun stuff with kids. So yeah, so it's not just me. There are a couple other team members, but I'm the only one that's kind of full-time doing this. So if you have reached out to us in the past, and I haven't been able to respond, it's because our capacity can be kind of low, but we're working on it, trying to figure out how to build stuff. But I'll just kind of read this out so you have an idea, just a good background of what our goals are overall. So we are offering culturally relevant and place-based educational presentations, training, leadership development, and hands-on learning opportunities to children and youth all across the state. And our goals are to support youth in understanding the history and deep social, cultural, and environmental importance of our unique acequia systems. Unique is a key word here. These don't exist in other places. So having a sense of pride in that is really, really what we're doing. Next thing, we affirm and uplift cultural heritage. We help youth deepen their feelings of querencia. Who knows that word? Have you heard it before at least? I see some nods. Do you want to say what you think it is? Huh? Well, querencia is a Spanish word. Querencia is a sense of belonging. So that is a sense of
home, it's a sense of all sorts of things. It's hearing the pressure cooker beans, it's the smell of burnt tortillas, it's those kinds of things, you know, but that's different for everybody. So carencia is a key component that we try and at least help our youth understand. Another thing, inspire youth and demonstrate the many possibilities that exist for living lives and having future careers as advocates and caretakers for acequias and local land, water, and seeds. And then we also support parents, teachers, communities, acequia leaders, youth organizations with resources to help them integrate acequia and farming education into what they do. Yeah. All right, this stuff is vital because we know that land-based knowledge is more important than ever. So as we're dealing with climate change, with climate crisis, we really want to make sure that the social issues that come from that are more represented in schools, in the media, and by having role models that you can have. So land-based knowledge is something that's not necessarily perceived as cool, but it's what we know is going to help us deal with the future that is uncertain and unprecedented here, especially with water. Yeah. I'll leave it there. Next thing is intergenerational learning. We want to grow relationships that are healthy throughout the entire community. So it can be hard sometimes in our communities to know what relationships are healthy, but we have an we do have that already within our families, right? And families live intergenerationally right now. So making sure that that knowledge is passed down in a healthy way and in ways that is like with dignity and honor and with different, I'm not very succinct right now, but basically we want to make sure that we have old people with young people who know this stuff. So the young people are going to make sure that they can carry it on. Next thing is Alana. So we are learning through practice. We're interested in experiential learning. We're interested in engaging a variety of learning types. I know that I could have used that in school. So we're trying to make sure we do that as much as we can. And next thing is critical thinking and critical consciousness. So we want youth to develop this kind of full stop. We need the next generation of leaders to be insightful and thoughtful as we have to be creative to deal with having less water and having less water specifically in our acequias. Next thing, kind of the foundation of it all, is belonging and sense of place. So how can you feel like the place that you're from is actually a place to be proud of? All right, so here are some of the programs that we run. We've got our school and classroom, our community presentations. We have our Sembrando Semillas Youth Project, the Los Sembradores Farmer Training Program, which is the one that I had done, kind of got me into the loop with all of this. Then we have a Leadership Institute, Career and Lifeways program, and then also we launched our first YCC last year, and that was specifically in Mora. All right, so school and classroom presentations. Each year we engage with 1,000 or more students across the state. So it's me kind of going into whatever schools or communities, libraries invite me in to do presentations, ranging from Head Starts to undergraduate. I also go into libraries, have done some stuff like summer school programs. Kind of just depends on who invites me and how long of a drive it is. But I also do online stuff. Like next week I've got one. We try and tie our lessons into diverse subjects: science, history, Spanish, creative arts, anything that kind of works with, we can integrate it into anything that's really needed. We do online applications, we do worksheets, and just distribute as many resources as we can across. You can also find it on our website, which might not be here, I think it was on a previous slide, where we have just free resources to integrate it. And then we're working on as much curriculum building as we can. We did recently get some funding to help do that so that we can get more like acequia education into the public school systems. It's been a long battle to figure out how best to do that, but we're here and we're really trying. So here's some more photos, examples. There's Billy. She's still in high school, but she used to do a lot more before. She's not as much now. Here's some of the seeds that we bring in. So we like to do a lot of that, like touching, seeing what these ancestral seeds are. And I love to play guessing games. So like, what do you think this is? And guess what this does? And also kids just seeing different types of maize, different types of corn, and realizing that it's not just the ones you see in the stores. So these little things can have big impact when you get to touch them and feel them. And there's an example of online stuff that we do. All right, and over the past like 5 years, and this is not a complete list, but these are the places that we try. So that's historically where we've gone to do physical or online presentations. Next thing was the Los Sembradoras Farmer Training Program. So over the span of 8 years, we have, or Done specifically, Done Gonzalez, who runs it, has graduated over 30 young farmers who are part of an intensive paid 9-month apprentice program. So 2 days you do time at the training farm, and then 1 day you do it back at home. We have that training farm that we support. That is the base for all of this stuff. And then we also support them cultivating their own seeds and family gardens. We emphasize traditional cultural farming, medicine making, water stewardship practices, and also modern farm techniques alongside business development. Next one is our Sacred Culture Youth Leadership Institute. Here's some photos. Those are some of our graduates from our first one that we ever ran. I think that was purely online. Then here you'll see a photo that's actually Don Bustos there. And I don't know who went on the field trip yesterday. I'm guessing, actually, I see you back there. This might have been a stop on the field trip yesterday. So we did a similar field trip to what you did yesterday. This year we didn't do it in the Santa Cruz watershed though. We did it in the Rio Hondo watershed up in Taos County. But basically we took the kids on a bus, did a huge tour of the watershed. And that's one field trip that we do alongside 8 online learning sessions. We pay all of our kids to participate in everything. And online for every session they participate in, there's a variety of topics going from carencia and understanding what that is, all the way through to land and water movements across the state and regionally that have historically happened, through to what their solutions think that what youth solutions could look like for water in our area. So 8 online sessions, then we do 2 to 4 in-person gatherings, and we try just to engage them as much as possible and get them to know their local commissioners, get to know their local potential local mentors. So here's another example of that. This year we did a arts field trip, which was specifically weaving and also visual arts. So they met up with Emily Trujillo, who is a young weaver from Centinela in Chimayo. And so she helped guide them in learning how to weave, which was super cool. And then also showed them and walked them through the history of weaving. And there's another example of our watershed tour where we worked with the local acequia, their commission, and we didn't quite manage to get in full contact with the land grant, but that's the ideal here. We are working with all community members who are involved and get the youth to just meet them. Our next one that we did, so we successfully did this as an online session, well, variety of sessions in 2021. So this was a response to COVID. The Career and Livelihood Program was a series of presentations that had different mentors who are all experts present to youth and to community members to get them kind of interested and engaged. What could these career paths be where they can still be engaged with their families and communities in rural areas, not just have to take off and go somewhere else. So we did this in 2021 as an online version, but we are really hoping that we'll be able to expand this and do it in person. So eyes on y'all for that potential collaboration. We just want, once again, I'll say this a million times, we just want the kids to be meeting all of these experts so they can get excited. And then finally, our most recent program that we're starting, which we really want to expand, and we think it has a huge capacity to expand, is the Aceite Youth Conservation Corps. So we launched this in Mora, specifically as a form of restoration from the wildfire, watershed restoration due to the wildfires. So it was only 6 weeks, but we engaged 16 to 18-year-olds and employed them to get to know their commissioners, to get to know other experts and other partners in the area that are helping with the recovery from the wildfire. And then they went out with the pala and just smashed it out and helped to bring back watershed like health, essentially. So it's the beginning of something. We are hoping this will happen again, and then we also are hoping that we can help others to put these applications in and have them happen all across the state. Yeah, so that's a quick rundown of all the different programs that we do. But what I think is also important, and what I really hope that others can walk away with, is what our methodology and vision is. So one thing that we emphasize is our holistic nature to our work. We're in person as much as we can be. We are experiential, and we are very relationship based in what we're doing. And the foundation of that is La Cultura Pura. So if we have healthy water and land, that means that we have healthy people. That means we have healthy communities. So in any way that we can share these things and develop and that keep that culture going in traditional forms, that means that we can make things better. We also really emphasize storytelling. So we want youth to learn how to tell their own stories and to articulate their world and their culture. That's something that they can carry on anywhere that they go. We also emphasize culturally appropriate education, where we bring the home space and home languages into school as much as we can. We want to recognize and acknowledge and bring dignity to the culture that these youth. I don't know if I said it enough throughout it, but we also are really trying as hard as we possibly can to bring as much economic opportunities to youth in everything that we do. So we pay youth for everything. I realize I missed a slide before, I think. Anyways, but even so, one of our programs, Sembrando Semillas, in that program, we even like little 2-year-olds are able to get like $20 for them to just go and help their grandmother, take corn off the cob, right? Even that, to just make sure that they're there and they can have this little bit of savings and they're still at home in their communities. They don't have to run off somewhere else to a job, or it's not them competing to work with the Family Dollar that's right there. It's them engaging with these cultural practices and giving them a sense of this is something that is worth doing. Because a lot of youth don't have job opportunities where they're at. It's also resume building. So I'll mention it again later probably, but we make sure that we are helping youth and giving them references for what they're doing in the future. And next is us having a healthy water future. We're really trying to intervene in this idea that the only way to make it is to leave and forget where you've come from. So we want to fully intervene in that and say, no, your future can be healthy and there is a possible future here. They just need support in doing that and encouragement for that. And the next thing I've got is our cute little ladder participation. That's pretty NMA specific, but it's technically about this whole acequia-wide and watershed-wide engagement. So starting with our Sembrando Semillas program, which is an small intergenerational program that we have across the state. It goes from littles, like still, little 2-year-olds, up into they leave home. So that's our intergenerational program. So really young, then also classroom community presentations. We hope that those participants then will get exposed to our Leadership Institute, which we run for high school aged youth. I might not have said that before, 14 to 19-year-olds. Then from there, they can potentially participate in our career livelihood program, be a youth caucus member, which is relevant for our Congreso de las Acequias, which is in 2 weeks. And everybody should come. Actually, almost 1 week. It's so soon. Anyways, next we want to develop internships and also develop a youth scholarship program. And then also we have something known as farmer training, which is for adults. And then from there, hopefully they can be engaging in doing farmer ranching, community organizing, be a staff member, or just be a part of acequia leadership in any way that's possible. And then from there, hopefully the cycle continues. So keeping it traditional knowledge within the system. So impact of our programming. There isn't much more to say except youth are our future, right? They're the future of our watersheds. They're the future of our acequias. They're the future of any of this knowledge being passed on. So now is the time to do it. The next thing is our Sembrados Semillas program, which I didn't say much about before, but at least within that program that we do, that has really helped with our storytelling side. That has really helped with intergenerational relationships being developed too. And it's kept older folks involved with younger kids in their communities. It has helped them to retain traditional knowledge and has helped them retain community ties. They also, it's just fundamentally kind of creating a healthy water future for those acequias and those watersheds. Next, for our Youth Leadership Institute, WRRI, part of our impact has been to reduce isolation in any of their land-based endeavors. So if they are interested in farming and gardening, they now have a network of youth all across the state and with us and the people that we know, so that they can feel like they have people to talk to about it, the challenges of it, what they're excited about, and just have that context available to them. We also often get requests for job references and also for references with schools. So we're writing those reference letters all the time for our graduates. And we have also seen how much they're way more articulate and passionate for their cultural practices. Sembradores, pretty simply, like we have 30 farmers that have graduated, and each of those farmers are now able to keep those water rights in use and also are recharging aquifers. So every single one of those people who's using acequias in the surface water is helping to keep that water cycle going and keeping it here, because losing water rights is huge. Next, the YCC program, we had 7 crew members. They did disaster recovery, that is huge. And I think it's helped them really be more hopeful in what their future can look like and know that you can repair what has happened. And it's also allowed for employment and steady employment over the summer based at your home. It's a big deal. So here's another map of generally places where we've done various work. There's more than that, also shiprock's off there in the corner. So we're trying to hit as much of the state as we possibly can, whether online or in person. Oh, and I think I missed something. Sorry, the presentation students, sorry. So high satisfaction rate, we have recurring requests to go back and forth to these schools. We do as many series as we can. Kind of only one of us doing it most right now, so I do the best that I can, but I'll be going to Tierra Maria a few times this year, hopefully in Dixon, do that same. So we know that people like what we do. And we also have feedback forms and do as much evaluation as we can to improve where we can. And finally, that's the thing I care about the most, is sharing seeds. Everything that we do, we share climate resilient seeds that are good for this area and have cultural value. So we share these seeds so that everybody has a sense of food sovereignty. And kids get excited, they see what we grow, I bring them in, things like that, and that cycle continues, and then they bring them back and see. Just then hear the parents or grandparents or uncles and aunties that are just like, oh, we have that too, why don't we try our seed? And you just hope that you create a spark. So some of our best practices at NWAA, local community is the foundation of everything that we do. We are deeply relationship-based, and we respond and adapt with feedback and dialogue depending on what the community asks us to do. And every time we do anything, they say we need more youth. It's a very old generation at this point that is engaged with the acequias. We don't have young people engaged. So it doesn't matter what meeting you're at, they're just going to say, where are the youth? So we're doing our best to get them involved and interested and help bridge this divide between an older generation that can be pretty grumpy and the younger generation that isn't terribly enthusiastic. It was hard work. Yeah, so we involve, rely on, and listen to the youth. We also have a foundation of respeto and humility. So we have a lot of respect for traditional agricultural practices in this place, and also these lineages that have worked with land and water. And in a similar vein, we want to acknowledge what youth and their families already know. So they know a lot, and they've been around these things before, and it's about bringing that back and saying that's not just something that's important at home, it's something that's important in all sorts of places, like at this water conference, right? There's links to these things here, and there is science that can back these things
Go ahead
up.
and check in once your breakout session finishes.
And not only that, it helps us to build a resilient future for what we're dealing with currently. And a little piece on our dreams. Yeah, we have a lot of ideas what we'd love to do. We want to develop a youth caucus so that we can get youth participating in policy work. So we want to get the youth at the Roundhouse as much as we possibly can. We'll see what can happen with that. We want to develop internships at NMAA. I have job descriptions. I'm ready for those youth. I just need the money. We want to develop a scholarship program. It would be a small one, but to help youth who are involved and interested in acequias, even if it's, you know, if we've seen them do art about acequias, or if they want to go into water environmental science. How can we help those scholarships, help kids get these scholarships from our acequia communities so they can continue their education, which can be hard to access and fund. We also want to expand as much of our land-based educational programs as possible. YCC is a huge one we'd love to expand. Sembrados and yes, and that format that we have for that, we want to expand that too. We want that experiential type of learning and on the ground nature of education to be more present. And finally, the big goal, which is widespread throughout NMAA and most likely here too, is that we want watershed restoration and stewardship to be community organized. So yeah, we all know that water is life and we need our communities and the life of our communities to. That's NMAA. And any questions about anything? Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. So what's your organization's relationship with local water authorities?
So we don't necessarily work with mutual domestics. Well, at least in more rural areas, we'll have a mutual domestic water system. So we won't work with them necessarily, but we focus on working with land grants and also acequia commissions more than anything, and also local schools. So even the like smaller, more localized Head Starts we'll work with, but we haven't been working with the wider water authorities as much.
Do you see an opportunity there?
I think so, for sure. I think I would need to sit a little bit more with strategically, how much is it more about making sure that the acequia commissions are something that are being supported. But I think having a holistic, like everybody should be sitting down at the table, right? So, and all of that water is implicated in each other. So I think it's super relevant.
Right, and speaking of funding, I think
Right.
water authorities tend to have some resources, I think, you know, as Explorer has been supported by Bernalillo County Water Authority.
Yeah.
So maybe, again, this is an opportunity, this may be,
Totally.
get those people involved and create sort of a program.
Yeah.
And get funded.
Like it, thank you.
Any more questions? The presentation, a lot of good, interesting information. Do you ever integrate your curriculum and the information that you share with tribal communities or tribal schools? Because your mission and your goals are pretty much the same of what a lot of tribal traditions are. And I see how it overlaps upon one another, and that would also involve the entire watershed, because a lot of the tribes are sitting amongst the various watersheds throughout the state. I was just wondering, do you ever coordinate with tribes, and is that something you see possibly happening in the future?
NMAA and the work that happens when it comes to water rights and adjudications and settlements and things like that, there's a lot of overlap with tribes, and all of this acequia world is very interlinked with that. When it comes to youth programming, with our high school age stuff, that overlap happens a lot more with tribal communities and tribal youth. When it comes to younger programs, at least where I'm based in Taos County, there's definitely a separation there, and it's not necessarily my place to be present in those communities as a non-tribal member. I think there's a lot of overlap and there could be a lot of like shared purpose and ways of engaging with the water and land. But I think we're just making sure to be careful that we understand that like we have our own like language and way of sharing things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we would be the best educators in a tribal school. But we have Indigenous youth that are part of our programs and are just wonderful and are participating just as much as anybody else who also need this type of education to happen. So we're totally down. It's just a matter of, yeah, how much that partnership is desired.